Well, I think we're in an earnings recession in addition to an economic recession. But imagine how much worse earnings would be if the Fed didn't have interest rates close to zero. So this whole thing is artificial, and the stock market right now is caught between earnings going down, but the belief that the Fed will come back in the game with a rate cut or more quantitative easing to lift the market back up.
Tony?
Peter, I'm curious about your rate cut comments. Do you think they'll go back to zero interest rate policy?
Well,
or
certainly.
negative rates?
I mean, they're even talking about, they're talking about even potentially negative rates, or they're thinking about it, and they can't go negative unless they first go to zero. But we were at zero before. Why wouldn't they go back to zero again? I mean, I think we're in a recession, but if we're not already there, we're very close to it. I think the Fed is likely to cut rates to zero than to raise them again.
What's your time horizon for that? Do you think that's going to happen, say, by June or over the summer, or do you think it'll happen later in the year?
Well, the wild card is the election, and the problem is the Federal Reserve doesn't really want to admit the economy is so weak that they have to cut rates back to zero, because President Obama is trying to pretend that we have this great recovery, and Hillary Clinton is running on 4 more years. So for the Fed to basically undercut that message by cutting rates, that puts the Fed in the box, because Janet Yellen is a team player, and she knows what team she's on, and Donald Trump has already said he wouldn't reappoint her. So she wants Hillary to win, but the problem is the economy is so weak that she might have to go back to zero to try to artificially stimulate it before November, because the weaker the economy is, the more people are going to be voting Donald Trump.
Just bear with me. You're on the other side of the coin here, Tony, so let's just put that on the table. You actually think the Fed's going to lift rates?
Oh, I don't think they're going to lift it. I think they may have one rate rise this year. We have maybe a 30% probability of a rate rise in June.
Right.
There's a long time between now and June, I think. But there was an employment index that came out today that the Fed looks at that actually had the employment outlook negative. So Janet Yellen, being a labor economist, she's really sensitive to the employment situation. If that employment outlook is negative, I think the chance of a rate rise in June is becoming, increasingly unlikely.